Hey folks, John with Alternate Arms, your friend in less than lethal self-defense. All right, tonight we ruffle some feathers. Let's get into it. Now folks, this video has actually been coming for a long time. As a lot of you guys know, I am very familiar with our community. I know a lot of the modders out there and a lot of the people that do a ton of stuff with the less than lethal. And we do talk in different communities all over Facebook and Instagram and X and yada, 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 yada. And one of the conversations that constantly comes up is using a .43 caliber launcher as a self-defense item, like our Walther here. Now, by the way, hey, YouTube, not a firearm. Nothing we're going to show in this video and nothing we're going to do in this video is a firearm at all. Now, let me tell you a little bit about something. Before we even can break down whether or not these are functional in a self-defense situation, we need to break down what self-defense means. Now, when you're dealing with a less than lethal launcher, you have two options. You're either going to deal with kinetic defense, which is an impact. In other words, using pain to dissuade or to deter your attacker and change their attitude in a very quick way. The other alternative is using chemicals, so PAVA or OC or the combination of both preferably, in order to disable your attacker, allowing you once again to get away. Either way, you're disabling and you're deterring. Now, when it comes down to actual deterrence and pain, this all boils down to velocity versus mass. How heavy is the object you're firing and how fast are you firing it? Depending on those two factors, that's going to give you the maximum amount of impact at the target level. That being said, the .43 calibers are not known for massive velocity. They simply don't have enough air getting behind the round to send it at the velocities you're going to see out of like the salt supplies or the Byrnas or any of the other ones that we actually have tested. Now, that does not mean that they cannot be used for self-defense. I'll give you an example. Our Walther, remember that one? Check this out. We are testing these in what I would consider is even an unrealistic situation. You're not going to be that far away, but we want to see if it would work if you were. So, all right, third magazine, here we go. Okay, Scully, let's see if you stay up this time. Well, I don't know about you guys. It looks like Scully got dusted. Let's go back here and take a look and see what actually happened. Every time I do this, guys, it's like walking through a cloud. No movie magic, remember? These are pepperballs. These were not the solids. And I want to give you guys an indication of exactly what that means. Okay. Those are direct eye shots. I was going for every pore. Cheek, cheek, eye, nose. Those were dead on hits, guys. Now, look. I don't care who you are. And look at the, here, let me check this out. Check this out. I got to show you this. I'm pretty sure that Scully here is not getting up from this encounter, guys. Now, guys, I don't care how tough you think you are. I don't care how much you work it out at Bally's and how you happen to look like Henry Cavill. I don't care. You take a hit like that, the game is over. So, what do we learn from that? Okay, self-defense is not only about the launcher, it's also about practice. Can you hit your target in a split second, making a decision right then and be able to hit and land on your target? What does this boil down to? Practice. You need to know your launcher. You need to practice with your launcher. You can have the greatest weapon on earth, and yet if the time comes and you can't use it, may as well throw it, right? So practice with your launcher. Now, that doesn't mean that Walther was modified. We know what kind of impact you're going to get out of the modifying the spring. And by the way, If you get a T4E launcher, and I'm talking about the Walther, the Smith & Wesson, the HK, or the Glock, and the PDP when they do finally release in June, mod the spring. I don't think I could be any clearer about that. Mod the spring, because they should have come from the factory with that spring. They didn't, so mod the spring. It's well worth it, and it changes the whole dynamic of the launcher. Now, there are other launchers out there that are 43 caliber. Perhaps you guys remember, we did an entire video on the Lancer Tactical Hornet. Check it out. All right, guys, so we got 4 more rounds in here, all pepper balls. We're going to go ahead and charge the weapon. Once again, I heard that click. By the way, when I discharged that last one after the 3 mags we fired through it, it did still have some pressure. I don't know how much, but it did actually have some when I discharged it. 3-4. All right, so we got some readings, guys. All right, so we got 340 and 328. So we are in that 330 range. That's off of the pepper balls, which means we'd be getting the same kind of basic range if we were using the regular balls instead of the riot balls. So that's actually good. Now, what you might notice about that one is it does seem to fire a little bit hotter than the T4E line. Why? One simple answer: blowback. If you are firing a launcher that blows back every single time you fire it, a portion of your air is being used to cycle the mechanism and knock the hammer spring back. What you're seeing whenever you're looking at the 43 caliber, the Hornets, and you don't have that. There is no blowback. Basically, essentially like an HTP 50, when you're pulling the trigger, it's pulling that bolt forward and allowing air to escape and thus pushing forward into the round. There's nothing else. So you're going to get more airflow behind them with less blowback. Does that mean you can get more FPS out of these if you delete the blowback? Well, yeah, but then you defeat the purpose of the launcher, correct? I mean, the whole concept is you've got that blowback action. It simulates an actual firearm. Now, for reality, there is no exception. There is no launcher that looks exactly like the original, like the T4E line. So we're talking, once again, Glock, Smith & Wesson, HK, and the Walther, right? So there's nothing that looks exactly like their counterparts like these. Now, we have been over FBI statistics before when it comes to 43 caliber launchers. I want you to listen to this carefully. Of all of the people that have actually had to pull their firearm in a self-defense situation, only 6% have had to fire it. Now, this is as of December of last year. 6% have had to pull the trigger, because once you pull the launcher out, the weapon itself is your first line of deterrent. Cowards tend to flee from force. They're looking for soft targets, not people that are going to fight back. That being said, you do need to get on target, you do need to hit your target, and you do need to unload on your target. Do not depend on a T4E launcher for kinetic defense. If you're in a scrap at a gas station and a guy pulls a knife and he's wearing a t-shirt and shorts, okay, kinetic, possibly. Rubber, steel, even aluminum. But remember also, when it comes to the rounds you fire through this, there is a point of diminishing returns. If you've got a heavy round, it's going to slow down coming out of the launcher, thereby losing that kinetic impact when it hits the target. So there's a sweet spot. And you'll notice whenever we test, generally when we're firing at Scully, we're using the rubber steel balls in that 2 to 2.4 gram range. They're perfect. You go any heavier than that, and in my experience, you're losing velocity to an extent to where you're actually losing that penetration when it hits the target. So watch that. You know, it might be cool to say, yeah, I'm firing 8 gram steel balls out of this. Well, number one, you're jacking up your launcher. Number two, you're losing the potential that it'll actually put out. Yeah, for sure. All right, now, let's move on to another unpopular opinion. Holstering some of the other launchers and concealing them. Now, I'm going to intentionally leave the HDP 50 out of this conversation. And probably even the LTL Alpha. We're going to leave this one out of the conversation too. The reason I'm going to leave them out is because these are very easy to holster and very easy to conceal, okay? There's a reason that the HDP 50 is probably one of my all-time favorite launchers. It's a great launcher, it always works, and it's easy to conceal. That being said, Byrna's, Salt Supply, I love you guys. Gavel, Grimberg, love you guys, but they're big. They're very large, which means if you're going to conceal them, you better count on your belt size being 2 sizes too big in order to actually conceal that launcher, or go with something under your arm or something like that if you want to wear a coat all summer. So keep in mind that these are easily concealable, which does give them a strategic advantage right off the bat. Because if you're in a situation and you've got this sleeved up and you pull your shirt up, automatically you have created a barrier between you and the person. They know that you are not going to go down as a soft victim. That's very important too. And one last thing, and I know somebody's going to say it because I hear it all the time. What if they pull a real gun on you and you get into a gunfight with them? Okay, look, we do not live in the gunfight at the OK Corral. These scenarios you're describing are the vast minority of any experiences. If you are in a situation like that, I will always tell you guys, this is an alternative to a firearm, not a replacement to a firearm. Personally, I've got them both. I keep one in the truck and I keep another one in the truck. I keep you know what I'm saying? I keep a real firearm and I keep a less than lethal, depending on the situation. And there are a couple of reasons for that, but we'll get to that right at the end. So at the end of the day, you're not going to end up in those kind of situations. They don't exist that often. I mean, very, very, very seldom will you see it. Should they arise, though, if a target cannot see and a target cannot breathe, a target cannot fire back at you, which means practice with your launcher and use a pepper ball, or more to the point, 8 pepper balls. So if you're in a situation like that and you feel that your life is in danger and that weapon comes up, you pull it and you unload it. Pop, 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 and then you get away. That's the idea. This is not meant to stand in there for a long duration combat. It just isn't. That's not what this is all about. This is a deterrent to allow you to get away to save your life. Right? So keep that in mind. On the topic, and this is something else that I get quite a bit, guys. On the topic of why in the world would you want to use a less than lethal if there is a situation where somebody's coming at you and they're drunk and they're violent, or they pull a pocket knife on you or something. All right. There's a couple of reasons. Number one, I'm a huge believer in human life. Guys, I'm a gun guy. Everybody out there that knows me knows that I am. But I also believe in human life. And I truly believe that if you're in a situation that you've got a split second, we're talking a millisecond, to make a decision whether to pull your lethal weapon and deal with the situation, thus changing your entire life forever. Whether you're in the right or not, your life changes forever from the second you pull that trigger. To where you go to a less than lethal, you can pull it out, square the situation away without those consequences. And we won't even wrap in collateral damage. Okay, I mean, let's just look at it from that aspect, not even collateral damage. Miss your target, hit the guy behind him, heaven forbid. Or you pass through the person you're firing at and it hits the guy behind him. These are all things you have to think about. Training is critical in any situation, no matter how great your weapon is, you must be trained on how to use it. If you pull out your weapon and you need to use it in a self-defense situation, you've got to be Johnny on the spot, no pun intended. You've got to be Johnny on the spot, ready to use it, knowledgeable how to use it, and confident in your surroundings and what's behind the target. That's incredibly important too, guys. So, this all takes us down to the question. Is a .43 caliber launcher practical in a self-defense scenario? Yes, kind of. There's a caveat. Number one, I would never, under any circumstances, count on a .43 caliber launcher in its stock or even modded form as a kinetic defense item exclusively. Now, if you choose to load with a kinetic round followed by pepper rounds, that is great. But never count on one exclusively as a kinetic defense item. And that leads me to pepper balls. Use a high quality pepper ball. Don't go buy Lancer Tactical pepper balls. You guys know what I'm talking about. If you're going to cheap out in your life, cheap out on the steak you buy tonight and not what may defend your life at some point in time. Spend the extra money and get a good quality pepper ball. That is critical. Also, change out your pepper balls about every 4 to 6 months if they're in your launcher all the time. Primarily because they are subjected to moisture. So if you're going into temperature where you've got high humidity, cold, hot, eventually you can actually damage the pepper balls. Pitch them, put in some fresh ones every 6 months. Just be ready when you need them. That's incredibly important. Get yourself some of the quick pierce magazines. You can puncture these and leave them punctured for a period of time. That being said, there is no way to know what that period of time is. You are dealing with aluminum pressed against a rubber seal. That pressure will hold under optimal conditions. However, if you're carrying this day to day, you're going in your nice warm house into the icy cold, or you're going from the icy cold of your house into the hot, humid outside in Texas. So that will cause your seals to constrict and expand. That can cause leakage. So I always say get yourself a quick pierce on one of these. It's a great idea anyway. That way, if you need it, you pop the bottom and you're ready to go. That's a great thing to do. Yes, 43 calibers can be effective as self-defense items, provided you use the right rounds, provided, and I do mean pepper balls, provided that you practice. This is a big one, right? Practice is key. Provided that you maintain your launcher, you have to maintain it. If you're going to keep a cartridge in there every couple of weeks, you need to fire it and test it, which you should be doing anyway to practice. See rule number 2. Keep and change out your CO2. Keep them fresh, or use a quick pierce magazine. Number 4, practice. Are you seeing a pattern here? Okay. And number 5, mod those springs. If you do have one of the T40 launchers, definitely do the magazine spring no matter what happens. You guys know that I carry them. You know that Air Funders has got them. By now, everybody and their brother's got them, but we've got them in stock. And if you need them, you guys can get in touch with us. I guarantee you we can get them out to you, and they're very cheap, and it changes the whole launcher. That's 5. Number 6, say it with me. Practice. If you want to use these as an effective self-defense item, practice with them. Now, I am going to break down multiple levels of the 43 caliber. I want to do another side-by-side with the Hornet, and another one that I found. By the way, you guys may have noticed that Mercury Rise discontinued their 43. Did that not shock anybody? There's a reason they discontinued it. It's because they went to a larger caliber pistol. They wanted to go with the MUB-50, and then of course onto the torpedo revolver, and something coming that they won't tell me about. Yeah, I know, it's horrible. But so 43 calibers can be effective. I've got a few more tests that are coming up, but if you're going to use it for self-defense, mod the spring, use pepper balls, and practice. That's the key. Guys, thank you so much for watching. I know that the tough guys are going to hit the comments. I know that people out there are always going to say, well, why are you going to use that? I would just rather shoot them if I'm... Okay, number one, if you're seriously that anxious to kill a human being, you might want to re-examine being behind the trigger of a firearm. Yeah. But number 2, there are alternatives. There is a reason that police use them, militaries use them, security companies are using them all over the place because they work. That's what counts. Have a great night, guys, and I will see you this weekend. Bye-bye.